not like the look of this sand.
Hello folks, thanks for joining me on the Fisherman's Trail. So far I've walked from Sines to Villa de Bispo, and it has taken me through 171.72 kilometers or 106.7 miles. I've walked through a lot of sand, across car parks, through more sand, through beautiful forests, through tarmac, across boardwalks, and through sand, of course. It has taken me through some of the most beautiful coastline I've ever seen, all across the Algarve. I've just watched waves come in and out for minutes, hours, but there have been some bad times too. I've been waiting out a storm in Lagos for a week. I've got bed bugs and blisters. That being said, I did get freckles for the first time in my life, which was pretty cool. This is part one of the journey. First up, it was the bus to Paris, which was pretty chill, honestly. We got across to the ferry and it was pretty swanky, if not a little stormy. But for the rest, it was mostly really lovely. Just sat, read, watched the waves. Arriving in Calais, it was pretty miserable, but still had a long way to go on the journey. Arriving in Paris, I was very nicely informed I wasn't allowed to sit in the cinema with all my stuff. So I chose a Vietnamese cafe instead, which was lovely, and just sat and read and watched the world go by. Might become a common theme. It was then time to take the bus to Lisbon. Yeah, go watch the video I made on that one. It was time to start the hike. Now, day one for most people is Porto Covo to Villanova del Montes, but I decided to start in Sines, get the real experience. So I took the bus from Lisbon to Sines, and it was pretty beautiful. It was a nice day. The bus was about an hour and a half, and on reaching Sines, I did a quick inventory check and zoned out, eating an accidentally vegan chocolate croissant from Lidl. The dream. Let's call it fuel. Here we go. Apart from this dog, wasn't a lot going on, and just until we reached Praia de Chão Torpes, the official start of the trail, where I took a break. At this point, I was feeling pretty good. The pack wasn't feeling too heavy, although it was digging in a little bit. But overall, I felt pretty ready for the day, to be honest. I was treated to some pretty incredible coastline almost immediately. And like I said before, the weather was good. This is what I had signed up for. Miles and miles of beautiful coastline. By this point, I was starting to wonder if it was all going to be sand, and if I'd be trudging through dunes the whole day. I took a second to take what I thought was going to be an artsy photo, but turned out to look like Master Uguay.
Today is a gift. That is why it is called a present.
Miles more coastline ensued, and the dunes were starting to take their toll, I'll be honest. It was hard work, and with the pack too, I hadn't really experienced that, but eventually I did make it to Porto Covo. 18 kilometers in the bank, not that much elevation, but enough through the dunes, and eventually made it.
Oh my god.
I was pretty stoked and sat watching a sunset. It was time for day 2, and I was feeling okay, but a little tired and stiff. I knew that today was going to be a hell of a day. It was going to be a lot of sand, but a lot of beautiful coastline. It was going to be 20 kilometers or so, and I knew it was mostly dunes. So it was a relatively early start. Take it easy, take it slow. How hard can it be? Well, I might change the name of the channel after this day. Let's just put it that way. I don't know why I didn't think there'd be more sand. It is coast from start to finish. Fortunately, there were some other cool things to see, like these rocks, and I did keep myself very entertained all day.
Geology rocks.
The walk continued along the coast and found this castle thing, which was kind of cool. The coastal views did not disappoint constantly. Quick fuel, refuel, and back to the dunes. It was rough today. Big time rough. Some brief interludes though.
Never been so happy to see a boardwalk. Sick of those dunes. What a boardwalk. It's wild. There's the waves. Bloody hell. Oof.
It was then lunchtime. It was the first time I'd used the MSR burner, the pocket rocket. It was great. By this point, I was already thinking I need to get rid of some of this weight on my back, and eating as much of the food on the trail, what I deemed my emergency food, was going to be pretty vital. So I set about it. First up was another Huel product. It was a madras, and it was okay. You know, it wasn't an amazing curry, but it was a curry nonetheless on the trail, and by the look on my face, I was pretty happy. I know I've mentioned sand a lot, but it is really hard to overestimate how difficult I found this day. I would class it as one of the most difficult days of hiking I've ever done, which was not shared with a lot of the other people in the hostel, but they did have much smaller bags. It was only aided by the fact that these views were ridiculous. Just watching waves come in and out over and over. But there were points when I just thought, oh, sod this. And you can pretty much tell how happy I am to get off the sand.
It's the end of the sand. Oh god, thank god.
I was so tired by this point, I really underestimated how hard the last few K were going to be, but I did make it to Villanova del Milfontes.
Ooh, there it is. Thank god for that.
The hostel for the night was lovely and it had a hot tub, which felt like the biggest reward at the end of a hard day. Day 3 began and it was going to be a slightly easier day at 16 kilometers and fewer dunes, which I was very happy about. It was a pretty green start walking through this little trail here, and after some highway, we got a chance to, there's the highway, we got a chance to look back on Villanova del Milfontes, and I'm a little sad I didn't get to spend a bit more time there because it was a very cute little village. I imagine it's very pretty in summer. So the walk was to Almograve today, and yeah, as I said, a little bit easier. There was a thread of rain all day, which didn't help. But again, as always, on the Fisherman's Trail, I've learned that the coastline will always be there and always be beautiful. I think this is the most beautiful part so far.
Wow. It's pretty spectacular. Oof.
I couldn't really understand where this thread of rain was coming from. It had been pretty nice all day, but it did start to get a little hazier, and I took a short break, and then it began. the downpour began just as I sat down and set up all my cook stuff, so I got completely soaked, which made the rest of the trek a little bit harder, and the last few K I think I lost my mind.
It's the final push. Oh, so cute. Hey buddy. Hey buddy. Turned out to be a bit of a mare. Pardon the pun. That's not bad stuff actually.
But I made it to Almograve, made it to the hostel,
Oh my god, we made it.
and caught up on traders.
It's raining. And I'm so tired.
Thanks everyone, and please do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. Keep on keeping on, folks.